Welcome to Letters from America, a road trip podcast searching for the Swedish heritage within the United States. I'm your host, Martin Wern, and today I've parked the Volvo at the vineyard out in Sonoma, right?
Yes, in Dry Creek Valley.
In Dry Creek Valley. And with me in the Airstream is Katarina Bonde, Katarina Bonde with an E. Welcome.
Thank you.
This is your vineyard.
That's true. Yeah, absolutely. We are sitting here in the middle of our Cabernet Sauvignon vines.
A Swede coming to America to sort of raise grapes.
Yes.
How did that happen? Can we start there?
Yeah, so we actually didn't come here to grow grapes. We came here to work in the IT industry. We moved to Seattle from Stockholm, worked in the IT industry there.
When was this in time?
We moved in 93.
Okay.
Yeah, in Seattle. And we actually lived there for 15 years, but having a huge interest in wine, we were, checking out the American wine scene and found that there was a lot of interesting places that we hadn't heard of before. Mm. And it was a work colleague that got me to come down here to Healdsburg, which is the central...
Which where we are now.
Yes, exactly. That's the town where we are. And so in 98, we bought vineyard land that was planted. I don't think we had any idea what we were doing. We thought, well, how hard can it be?
How hard can it be?
Yeah,
exactly.
I wish I had. I'm glad we didn't know because I don't think we would have done it then.
No.
We bought 30 acres.
That goes for a lot of things.
Yeah.
It's better to just jump to see what happens.
So we bought 30 acres of Chardonnay that we have later replanted with a little bit of Chardonnay, but also other grapes. And then we jumped even further. So half a year later, we bought the property where we are right now, which is has a beautiful view over the valley, has Cabernet Sauvignon, which is my favorite grape. And we also built a house here up at the top. But we still lived in Seattle and worked. So for the the first years, we were grape growers from afar. We came down on the weekends. We had a vineyard manager who I will say taught us a lot. I started taking classes at UC Davis to understand how you make wine.
Sort of jumped into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We hired a winemaker. So I worked alongside to learn about winemaking. And then in 2008, we sold our house in Seattle, and that's when we moved here.
To be
here.
Full-time
Yeah,
winemaker.
to be full-time, almost full-time, because this is a kind of... it's a job that really requires patience. There are days when nothing happens per se, of course. I mean, the grapes are growing. There's a growing season. No, you can't rush that. No. And then there is, after harvest, nothing happens until we get the bud break again. So there will be months when nothing happens in the vineyard. Then, of course, there's the winemaking. But even winemaking isn't something that you really do every day. I mean, we're a small family winery. We don't have millions of gallons of wine. So the big event is, of course, harvest. And then fermentation that comes after that. But
how long does that take from... Because before we started this conversation, you showed me a little bit about the wines out there. And you talked about the age from plant, the years it takes before it sort of produces something, and then the lifespan of the plant, and then you have to do that cycle again.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of patience is probably the wrong word, but it's there's a foresight to it that you have to have all the time.
Absolutely. So when you plant a grape variety, then that will take another 4 years before you actually see a harvest, and then you harvest. And for me, I really adhere to a more French tradition in winemaking. So I like to keep in particular, Cabernet Sauvignon for 2 to 2.5 years in oak barrels. And then after that time, we bottle and then we store it even further a couple of years before we release it to the market. So this is a long cycle, and I'm a very impatient person. So this has been, profoundly helping me to think about things in a different way.
That leads into a question that is probably a little bit hard to formulate, but if we look at what we consume as humans, the food, the drinks, there's everything, and then there's wine. There's something about wine that has a certain spirit to it, a certain soul to it, regardless of Californian wine or French wine. We lift it up a little bit above everything else. Why do you think that is? What is it about wine that makes it so special? Because it is...
that's a really good question.
It's a natural product in a way.
It's a natural product. I think there's a lot of... I mean, it's not like wheat where you grow the wheat and then, it can become... it can become bread and so on, but no one talks necessarily about all the different types of wheat and when was it harvested, etc.
No, exactly.
I think what happens here is that there has always been some kind of mystery around wine and how it's created. I mean, it has to be known that it was not known until Pasteur discovered yeast and really, looked at what yeast is doing in a fermentation process. So it wasn't really known how wine actually became wine. People have been making wine for like 8,000 years.
Yeah, it's an old product, like bread almost. Yeah,
but they didn't know how.
Maybe that's
they harvested the grapes, they pressed them. Somehow it changed into another drink that got other flavors. Obviously, alcohol. I mean, it was obviously noticed that you got a little more happy and and with
it
too much
soothes the
drunk.
soul in a way.
And all sorts of festivities have been connected with wine. Dionysus and
it's like a godlike.
So it's been
everything from Jesus to the Greek
and it's been
mythology.
talked about. So a lot of gods have been attributed to drinking wine or making wine or creating wine. So I mean, you take Jesus. I mean, it was noted that he could create wine out of water. Why would he create wine? It could have created milk, which is way more healthy when you think about it.
I never thought of that. That's an interesting take. They didn't know, so they just applied the magical process of it to the gods. I'm just guessing now. Yeah,
I mean, of course, I think people that were a little more scientifically oriented probably understood
the aspects of it.
But the yeast cells themselves, that was not really known how that worked.
So that's quite recent.
Exactly, that's quite recent.
Yeah.
How you store wine and how you make sure that it doesn't go bad, that is something that, bottles is a fairly new invention.
Yeah.
And especially bottles with corks. I mean, that's only a couple of 100 years So before that, it was barrels, and then you would maybe have smaller barrels, or you would have a bottle, but the bottles were quite uneven, and they didn't have real corks. They would carve out a little plug of wood, and so wine typically went bad pretty quickly, and it wasn't.
Didn't they use in the ancient time like leather as animal? Intestines,
you could have pouches of skin, but also it was very common to flavor the wine with herbs and spices, because usually wine couldn't be stored more than maybe a year, a couple of years, because the oxygen in the air would make it go bad. So it's to be honest, to make really good wine, that didn't really happen until the 1800s.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Because so before that, it was kind of...
Well, I mean, I'm not going to say it was bad. Maybe 1700, but I'm going to say that it's the whole process of making wine last has to do with making sure that you can control the temperature so that it's cool enough, but also controlling it so that you don't get too much influence from oxygen.
Yeah.
And for that, you need to make sure that you keep the barrels completely full of wine, so that you top them up all the time, as an example. So there's a lot that happened around the time, late 1700s, when a lot of other discoveries were made, and then also winemaking became better and better.
That's when we became more, knowledgeable in chemistry also.
Exactly. And the method of creating a clear champagne was created. It's attributed to Madame Ponsardin.
And how do you do that?
Clicquot. So when you create a bubbly wine, you first make a base wine, then you insert a little bit of yeast and sugar, and put a cork to the bottle, so that the fermentation starts again.
Within the wine
within
itself.
the bottle, and because the carbon dioxide that is created during fermentation is trapped inside the bottle, that creates the bubbles. But then the problem is that since you put some yeast in there will be sediment of dead yeast cells. And you also have to get that cork out, and if you want to get those yeast cells out. So how do you create this solution? So she came up with, so it's said, or maybe she and her co-workers, they came up with a method where you twirl the bottle very slowly until it's upside down over the course of a couple of weeks. Yeah, the riddling that you see. And that's happening until the bottle is completely upside down. And then all the sediment is down at the neck of the bottle. And then you dip it into a solution that is freezing cold. Like glycol is used very much these days. And that creates a little plug of ice at the bottom, which also contains all the sediment. And then you move the bottle back up again. You take out the cork, and then this little plug of ice shoots out because of the carbon dioxide inside the bottle, creates this pressure. And then you have to be fast to put in a new cork.
Wow.
Yeah. So and obviously this is something that's been done only for like 200 years. Before then, bubbly wine was full of sediment and also much, much sweeter than what we like. But
that really, in a way, it explains it also, but in a way it also adds to the question that I've already said, that what is it about this beverage that makes us do all these steps to have it? It's like, it's such a complex way of getting a drink in a way. I mean, it's years in the waiting, it's years in the making, it's years in the waiting, it's years in the storage, and you have to manage it, and you have to do that, and then all of a sudden it's in a bottle in your local store, and you take it home, and you celebrate something or whatever, and there's still something unanswered in this. Why is it so important to us in a way? A Swede in California, making wine. Is there a Swedish way of making a good wine?
I don't think so.
No? There's no Swedish
there's no Swedish
little sparkle
recipe.
that you put on this?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously Sweden is not a big winemaking country, even though we do have wineries now in the very south of Sweden. But I will say, though, that Sweden in the last 30, 40 years has become a country with an enormous interest in wine. We have, there's a...
Yes, for sure.
There's a large organization called Munskänkarna, which educates people in different types of wine, how to know what you're drinking, what to look for, but just, the interest in wine. And I think they have some 25,000, 30,000 members.
Oh, yeah.
Even small villages with, a couple of thousand people often have a group of this organization, Munskänkarna. And they're very professional. Their education is in different levels. I have come across, growing up in Sweden, when I went to university, that's when I first got interested. I belonged to a group that did just that, learning about wine, and then traveled around in Europe to France, Italy, Germany, Spain, all these different places where you could learn more about wine. So we brought that with us. So when we moved to Seattle to work, we brought with us a huge interest in wine, but quite frankly, I didn't know much about American wine.
No.
There was not a whole lot of American wine sold in Sweden back in those days. And the American winemaking has also gone through a lot these past 30 years. I mean, it's really become more and more refined. Even though I will say, I mean, it's not a young tradition here either.
There's two things I want to ask about just the Californian wine or American wine, but there's what makes a good wine? What is it that makes a good wine, in your opinion?
Well, I think I think that what you just said, in your opinion, I think is the key word here.
Oh yeah,
because it really is incredibly personal what you like and what you don't like. So to begin with, I think when someone asks me, so, you know, what should it taste like? You know, is this a good wine or not? I can't tell you if you like a certain wine or not, because if you drink it and you don't like it, it doesn't matter if I say that it's a good wine.
No, of course.
So I think that makes sense. That's an important part to begin with. But then, of course, there are certain attributes like, is this wine, can this wine be stored? Can this wine get better with age? That's something that many of us in the wine world are looking for. A wine that's well made, that can go through many years. And usually what happens then is that the wine will change character. And
that's a good thing.
For you know, not for all wines. I mean, there are wines that are supposed to, that you're supposed to drink when they're very young. I mean, they'll be fun for a couple of years and then they will fade away. Not necessarily go bad, but they will fade away. The fruitiness will disappear, and there isn't necessarily much more to it. But if you take wine that is made from grapes with a lot of tannins, which is the preserver, that is the substance that helps to preserve the wine, that is something that helps to change the wine over time. So that is why we often use oak barrels to age the wine after.
But that flavors the wine also.
Yeah, it does. So what it does is that it. I mean, now it's going to get a little technical here. But so oak is a tree that has a lot of its own type of tannin, lignin, and the lignin in the wood will work with the tannin in the wine, and it will combine and make the wine softer. So it's going to help to temper the wine so it's not so harsh and astringent as it is when it's young. So this is happening when the wine is in the barrel. Then once you bottle it, of course, now it's out of the barrel.
Sorry, all I can think of when you say that is that how many trials did it take to finally, let's make an oak barrel. You know, they tried like different trees. No, not that one, not that one.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good thing too, that you're asking, because obviously, this has taken centuries to figure out back in Europe. Here in America, they did try with different trees like redwood, which I had lots of here in California.
Yeah.
They tried that, but that doesn't have enough of lignin or the tree's own tannins, so it didn't help, really, no. And the flavor did not get very interesting. So that's not used much. Now, there is a European variety of oak, there's an American variety of oak. You can use either or, but they will give you different flavor profiles. So the American oak gives a different flavor profile. And, I mean, it's even so that if a tree grows on a north-facing slope rather than a south-facing slope, you will get different flavors.
And I'm coming back to the question. I mean, imagine you're from another planet and visiting, and you see all of this, and the result of all this labor and all this knowledge is a tiny bottle that you put in your kitchen. They will ask, what is in that bottle? It's just that like a magic drink in a way, which it.
Yeah, I mean, some people think it is.
Yeah, a lot of people apparently.
Yeah.
There's another Swedish connection to you and your winery. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you are the first Californian or American wine to be represented at the Nobel Prize in Stockholm.
That's correct.
How did that happen?
Because
there's a lot of competition.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is about 15 years ago, and we had started to have some wines represented at some restaurants in Stockholm.
Mm.
And the Nobel Awards Committee every year in the fall, they decide on, besides the most important part, which they have other committees. There's an expert committee for each of these prizes for the physics and chemistry, etc.
I have an episode of a chemistry episode from that.
But the main committee, they also have to decide on the menu and the wines, and this always takes place in the City Hall in Stockholm, which has a wonderful kitchen, of course, and chef. And they first decide a menu, and then they need wine to go with it.
Yeah.
And what happened this year is that a sommelier that had imported our wine to his restaurant recommended our wine into the process. And at least then, this was a blind tasting process. So they had about, I don't know how many, 10, 15 wines that they tasted blind.
Yeah, to fit with the menu.
Yes, exactly. And our wine, our Cabernet Sauvignon, was one of them. And it got chosen.
How did that
And I
feel?
think they were a little bit surprised because they had never had an American wine before.
No.
So I think they thought it was a French wine.
How did that feel?
Oh, well, I remember we were in the middle of harvest, during harvest time, and we got a call. And I have to tell you that I thought someone was joking with us.
Because if there were a Nobel Prize in winemaking, this would be it, in a way.
Yeah, at least if you're Swedish, yes, definitely. So that was really exciting, I have to say. And the papers in Sweden are really interested in, this whole banquet, and especially what people are wearing and the menu and the wine, etc. So there were some reporters in one of the papers that said with authority that they knew firsthand that there was going to be a French chateau wine served. And I was reading it thinking, like, they don't know anything.
No. There's another thing I wanted to ask you also. It has nothing to do with the Swedish thing. It's just a thing that I've picked up somewhere in the back of my mind, that there was something wrong with the wines in Europe that got saved by American.
Oh, you're thinking of the phylloxera. You're thinking
of
that? It's called the wine louse. It's a little bug.
Yeah.
Phylloxera is the Latin word for it. The bug spreads a disease that's called phylloxera, and it attacks the root system.
Okay.
Yeah, it attacks the root system. This didn't exist in Europe for centuries. What happened was that European winemakers that came over here and saw all the wild vines that were growing in the forest and thought, oh, wow, these would be interesting to see how they, how they would fare at home. So they actually brought wild American vines to Europe and planted them. The problem is that brought with it this little insect.
Ah.
And they are, when it comes to American vines that are wild
like
here in nature,
thing, yeah.
They had been living in symbiosis for millennia, probably.
Yeah.
So it didn't impact them. They were not susceptible to it.
No.
But the poor European grapes, the Chardonnays, the Cabernet, the Pinot Noir, etc., they were infested and started dying. So whole vineyards were dying.
Oh, wow.
And it took, I think it was like 10 years or so with all sorts of trials to figure out how to save the situation, because the economic devastation was huge. And finally they came up with the plan, which worked, and this is how it's been working ever since, to graft. So you graft the winemaking wine, like the Cabernet, the Chardonnay, you graft that plant onto an American
and grafting
root.
is just putting it together.
Yeah, putting it together. So
well,
you take the vine, the piece of plant that is above ground, and you bind it together you graft it to the root of an American vine, and they will grow together. And the neat thing here is that the American root system is not going to be impacted by these little insects.
So the European wines have American roots?
Yes, today
literally.
All of them do.
All of them also?
Yeah,
Wow.
and the same thing here in the States. So when we grow, these insects will eat up the European grapes like, they were at some big, beautiful banquet.
I knew I had it somewhere.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You were absolutely right. So all the vines that produce wines that we are drinking is a beautiful collaboration between Europe and America.
There you go. You are from Sweden.
Yes, I am.
Where in Sweden?
Stockholm.
Stockholm is your...
Yeah.
On the map on the table here is Stockholm, right there.
Yeah, I can see it.
And you lived up in Seattle for many years.
Mm-hmm, I did.
And now we're somewhere around here, the Bay Area.
Yeah, we are in northern, what we call North Bay.
Yeah.
And it's this valley is called Dry Creek Valley. And our main city is Healdsburg. It's a little town of 11,000 people.
It's not featured on the map, but it's somewhere around here.
Yes, exactly.
Where is home?
Oh, gosh, that's a good question. For me, it's Sweden and Healdsburg. It's Stockholm and Healdsburg. It's where I am. I'm home. I can't say that because I always go home. When I fly back to Sweden, I say I'm going home. Then when I'm there, I find myself to say that I'm going home when I come here. So I'm always going home.
That's interesting. But if I force you to choose, can you write your signature where home is?
Oh, gosh. Right now.
Right now?
Right now, this very moment, I am here.
Okay. So that's where we are now.
Yes, that's where we are
And this is where you came from.
Yes.
And if you were to write a letter from here to where you came from, what would that be?
If I were to write a letter to myself or to what?
To where you came from, the family, the school, your friends, the neighborhood, your old dog.
If I were to write it about what's happening right now, you mean? Or
it's up to you. You've lived in all these places. You've been around.
Yeah.
And now you're here. And when you're in Stockholm, you say that I'm going home. And this is where you wrote your name.
Yeah.
And as we're speaking now, if you were to write a letter from where you are now to where you came.
Well, I would probably, let's see. Well, dear Stockholm, I wish I could take all of you who I know, who are there right now, and just bring you on this gigantic magic carpet.
Yeah.
So we could all be together here and you could enjoy this beautiful April day. It's sunny. It's probably around 75 degrees Fahrenheit, so around 25-ish Celsius. Early this morning, I was listening to the wild turkeys that were running around, gobbling, and it would be lovely to have everyone here with me and be able to share that.
Yeah, it's a lovely place. Mm-hmm. Thank you for coming. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful. That's it.
You have listened to Letters from America, a weekly road trip podcast celebrating the Swedish heritage in the United States. Produced in collaboration with the Embassy of Sweden in Washington, D.C., Volvo Cars USA, Volvo Trucks USA, and Airstream.